Welcome to the deep dive. So, you're thinking about an electric vehicle, maybe,
Yeah,
and figuring out the money side, the incentives, it's pretty key, right?
absolutely. It can seem complicated.
Yeah, so today we're gonna, try and cut through some of that confusion.
Yeah.
We'll break down the different EV incentives out there, help you feel a bit more confident navigating it all.
Sounds good. And we've looked at sources focusing specifically on what kinds of incentives are actually available.
Great. So, first big question, federal tax credits. Are they like a definite thing when you buy an EV?
Yes, they definitely exist. The government uses these federal tax credits to encourage people to switch to electric. It helps lower that initial purchase price.
Right, makes sense. Kind of softens the blow a bit.
Exactly. The idea is to make EVs more accessible, especially if that upfront cost feels like a hurdle.
Okay, so that's the federal level covered, but is that it?
Yeah.
Or should you be looking closer to home, like state or local governments?
Oh, definitely look closer to home. Many states and even some cities or counties have their own incentives.
Really? On top of the federal ones?
Yeah, often on top, these could be extra rebates, maybe state tax credits, sometimes things like registration discounts or HOV lane access.
Hmm,
So it really pays to do a quick search for, EV incentives plus your state or city name. You might be able to stack those savings.
good tip. Okay, but who actually qualifies for these? Does everyone get them? How does income, for instance, or how much tax you owe factor in?
Yeah, this is where it gets a little more complex. Eligibility is crucial.
Okay.
For the federal credits particularly, there are often income limits.
Hmm.
So if your income is above a certain threshold, you might not qualify for the full amount or maybe not at all.
Right, so you need to check that based on your own situation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And another big point is tax liability. Many federal EV credits are non-refundable.
Non-refundable. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means the credit can reduce the tax you owe down to zero, but you don't get any leftover amount back as a cash refund.
Okay. So if the credit is, say, $7,500, but you only owe $5,000 in federal taxes that year.
You'd only effectively get a $5,000 benefit from that credit. The remaining $2,500 just kind of disappears. You don't get it back.
Gotcha. That's a really important distinction. And state or local rules might be different again.
They can be, yeah. Some might be refundable. Some might have different income caps. Always check the specific rules for each incentive.
Okay. Now, what about folks not buying brand new? Lots of people look at used cars or maybe leasing. Do any incentives apply there?
Yes, good question.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes for used now, which is relatively new. There's a separate federal tax credit specifically for used EVs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it has its own set of rules, of course, lower credit amount, vehicle price caps, income limits again, and restrictions on how old the car can be. But it does open things up.
And leasing. How does that work with credits?
Leasing is different.
Yeah.
Generally, the leasing company claims the federal tax credit, not the person leasing the car. However, sometimes they might factor that credit savings into your lease deal, lowering your monthly payments. It's definitely something worth asking the dealership about when you're negotiating a lease.
Right. So ask if they're passing that saving on. Okay. We hear the terms rebate and tax credit thrown around a lot. What's the actual difference for the buyer?
The main difference is timing, really, and how you get the money.
Okay.
A rebate is usually more immediate. It might be money back soon after you buy the car, or sometimes even an instant discount right at the dealership. It's upfront savings.
So cash in hand or effectively cash off the price sooner.
Exactly. A tax credit, on the other hand, reduces the amount of tax you owe when you file your taxes for the year you bought the car.
So you don't see that benefit until tax time, potentially months later.
Correct. So a rebate gives you that quicker financial relief, while a tax credit impacts your tax bill down the line.
That makes sense. You mentioned instant discounts. Is there a move towards making these incentives easier to get, like right when you buy the car?
Yes, definitely. There's a big push towards what's called point-of-sale application for the federal credits now.
How does that work?
The idea is that if you qualify, you could transfer the credit to the registered dealer, and they could apply it directly to the purchase price right then and there.
Oh, wow. That would make a huge difference.
It really simplifies things for the buyer, takes a burden off needing enough tax liability later. This is becoming more common, so check if the dealer offers this for the specific EV you're considering.
Good to know. What about businesses? If a company wants to switch its fleet to electric, are there incentives for commercial EVs?
Yes, absolutely. There are often separate tax credits and incentives aimed specifically at commercial vehicles and fleets.
Okay.
Encouraging businesses to go electric can have a really significant impact on overall emissions, so there are definitely programs to support that. Businesses should look into those specific commercial EV opportunities.
Makes sense. So with all these rules, income limits, different types of credits, where's the official source? Where should people go to get the definitive up-to-date information?
For the federal credits, the absolute best source is the IRS website. Energy.gov is also a great resource.
IRS.gov.
Yes, they have the detailed rules, the lists of eligible vehicles,
Hmm.
the specific forms you might need, those income limits we talked about. It's crucial to check the official source because these things can and do change.
Good advice. Always go to the source. Now, it's not just the car itself, is it? What about charging? If you install a charger at home, are there breaks for that too?
Yes, another great point. There are often incentives for installing EV charging stations, both for homes and businesses.
Oh, really? Like what?
These can come from the federal government. There's often a federal tax credit for charger installation, but also check state programs and even your local utility company.
Utility companies too.
Yeah, many utilities offer repumps or special rates for EV charging equipment or for charging during off-peak hours. It helps manage grid load and encourages home charging. So that's another layer of potential savings.
Worth looking into that as well then. Okay, looking forward. Are these incentive programs likely to stay the same forever? Or should we expect changes?
I think it's safe to expect changes over time. Historically, these kinds of programs evolve.
How so?
Well, as the EV market matures and adoption increases, governments might shift the focus. Credit amounts could change, eligibility rules might tighten, or maybe they'll phase out certain credits in favor of, say, more point-of-sale rebates or focusing on infrastructure.
So stay informed, basically.
Exactly. It's wise to keep an eye on announcements from the IRS, Department of Energy, and your state energy offices for any future updates. What's available today might be different next year.
Okay, that's a really helpful overview. So just to recap quickly, we've touched on federal credits, state and local add-ons, the nuances of eligibility like income and tax liability, incentives for used EVs and leasing, the difference between rebates and credits, point-of-sale options, commercial EVs, and even charging station perks.
Right. The bottom line is there's a lot of potential financial help out there from different places to make buying and owning an EV more affordable.
But you need to do your homework for your specific situation.
Absolutely. Understand what's available, check the eligibility details carefully, especially income and tax liability for credits, and look at federal, state, local, and utility options.
Definitely a lot to weigh up. So, a final thought for you listening. Considering all these potential savings, how might they sway your decision about possibly going electric? And maybe zoom out a bit. What do you think the long-term impact of these kinds of government incentives will be on how we get around and, on the environment overall? Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.